Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sunbelt Baseball Podcast with Matt and Coach Ty Harrington. Coach, good to see you. I know you didn't have any games this past weekend, so I'm sure you still got plenty of fill of baseball somewhere along the line.
Yeah, so after my daughter's sand volleyball games, I spent most of my Saturday and Sunday afternoons and evenings in my garage or in my house watching college baseball. So, I got to see plenty of baseball. Even though I wasn't doing the announcing part of it, I got to view quite a bit of it. And what another great weekend all over, whether you were watching the Sun Belt, which is what we're talking about, or your favorite team or conference, whatever that might be. There were some outstanding games on college baseball, as always, this weekend.
No doubt. We have lots to talk about here on the podcast. And we're going to talk to Georgia State coach Brad Stromdahl. Panthers coming off a big series win over defending Sun Belt champion Southern Miss, and they play at Troy this coming week. We'll talk to him. Ragin Cajuns continue to lap the field in the conference. They're 14-1, and they've moved up to 14th in the country in the national rankings. And there are 5 teams now that are tied for second in the standings, 9-6, including 19th ranked Coastal Carolina, who picked up a series win at Georgia Southern this past weekend. This coming weekend, the Chanticleers will be playing host to Louisiana Ragin Cajuns in what will be the marquee matchup, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on too.
A lot of matchups coming up, and again, you brought up Louisiana first, and they just find so many different ways to beat you, but the constant for them has been on the mound. Showed it again this weekend. I mean, look, when you're going out there throwing shutouts and the lack of the other team offense is usually a show of the other team's pitching, and it's certainly what happened again this weekend with Louisiana. And they continue. Coach Degg seems to find different ways to create wins, but on the other side of it is you pitch, play defense. It's been one of the oldest adages in baseball. You still got every time you do that, you got a chance to win. They showed it again this past weekend.
Yeah, that's our number one story this week. They sweep Marshall, and the combined score of the 3-game series was 6-1. I can't remember any time I've ever seen a 3-game series, at any level for that matter, major leagues or whatever, 6-1 finals. They beat them 3-1 in the opener, 1-0 in the second game, and then 2-0 in the series finale. Just phenomenal pitching, which that's got to make everybody nervous in the Sun Belt to see them be able to roll that out there on a weekend.
Yes, it should, obviously, and for them to play those. Usually, when you play those tighter games, there's usually one game in there. That Saturday or Sunday game that something happens that the wheels wobble. On either team or something, but they didn't on either team, quite frankly. I mean, if you go in there with exception, Marshall wasn't able offensively to do some things, but they're right there probably thinking every half inning when they're going in there, we're a base hit, homer, whatever it might be away from tying this game up or even having a chance to win it. But my goodness, and, it's not just the starting pitching for Louisiana. It's the back end of it, too, that's so strong as well.
Yeah, LP Langevin picked up his 5th save. I mean, and he's not getting these 1-inning saves. He's getting these long, 2+ innings, 3-inning saves. I mean, he is really phenomenal. That gives them a real punch. They can piggyback him off a starter. They've been doing that on their Friday night games. They did it again. And the flip side of the story is Marshall's got some pretty good pitching too. If they could ever find some offense, because they pitched very well against Texas State the week before when they won 2 out of 3 from the Bobcats.
Yeah, and then rolled around and won a game from West Virginia where they had to hold it late too. I mean, you're right, 100% right. I think it shows the progress that they've made as well, and what they're becoming as the season grows, and particularly it looks like on the mound as well. When you go into a 3-game series, Coach Deggs is doing is when he stacked Langevin in there, he's saying historically on Friday, and that allows him 24 hours, and then he comes back on Sunday too. But they're going after that win that day. If it's a 6-out, 9-out, whatever it might be, which is what he did against Texas State, it was 6 outs, 9 outs, and then then he comes back and using them again on Sunday because he is a physical young man too, and his command is good on the repeat day. 24 hours later, when he's repeating, his command's okay. It's not like as sharp as it would be on Friday, but nobody's is, when you do it like that. But he's been able to because he's physical. And I like the idea they're aggressively going, we're going to go win on Friday, and then we're going to win, put 2 more piggyback in there on Saturday, and then we'll go back and attack it with him again on Sunday.
Yeah, I had the great pleasure in my career to be around Hall of Fame manager Bobby Cox, and that was always his philosophy. He was like, we got to get the win today. I mean, we'll worry about tomorrow when we get to tomorrow, but we got to get the win today. We're not playing shuffling our cards here and trying to figure out what we can do here and what we do there. We're going to get the win today. So, story number 2: 5 teams tied for second place in the Sun Belt right now at 9-6. That's Georgia. Hold on a second here. Someone's calling me, and it's not somebody that I want to talk to. So I should have muted my phone. Anyway, so you got Georgia State, Georgia Southern, Coastal, Troy, and Southern Miss all at 9-6. And these would be the top 6 seeds right now in the Sun Belt tournament. 4 of those 5 teams played each other this past week, and 2 more will play each other this week when Georgia State goes to Troy.
Yeah, that's a logjam in there. And, what's interesting is that at the 9-6, all those that would be your top teams, as you just mentioned, but with Coastal and Louisiana playing this weekend, what type of, outcome is going to have, quite frankly, could have as to whether somebody's able to catch Louisiana or not.
Exactly.
And
someone's got to slow them down.
Yeah, that's right. And the clash of that series, to me, and I think you feel the same way, you've got Louisiana, pitches so good, and Coastal, who is so offensive. So, in an offensive ballpark. So, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, and they get them at their place. That's huge.
Yeah. And you get to see what kind of the clash of the 2 different sides of the ball and what that's going to look like. Not that Louisiana can't hit, they can. But what I'm saying is Coastal is more of a power-oriented offensive team. And with, Louisiana's pitching, it's going to have, I think, a great clash. Now, going back to the 9-6 teams, all those teams in there over the next, several weekends, or a couple of weekends that they've got, there's going to be a weeding out of, obviously, somebody winning and losing. Some of it has to do with how you're playing. Some of it's going to have to do with who you're playing. And that's going to have a lot to do with it, whose schedule that favors the other ones, and what does that look like as well.
Story number 3, the biggest series of this past weekend. Coastal took 2 out of 3 from Georgia Southern, beat them badly, 16-4 in the finale after they split the first 2. Georgia State beat Southern Miss 2 out of 3. It was the first time the Panthers had ever played the Golden Eagles. 46-30 was the total score in that series. Sounds like a football score. We're going to hear from Brad Stromdahl coming up in just a few moments, but just a phenomenal effort by the Panthers. It was the most runs that ever scored in the Sun Belt Series. I mean, 46. That's kind of a no-brainer. And they also hit 12 home runs in the series.
And I like the idea that in the interview he talks about how the wind was slightly blowing out and there was some balls that were being hit. And I was like, the box score told us there was a ton of home runs there. The wind had to be busting out of there. And but I love the idea.
It was buzzing. Friday night in the Atlanta, and I was in Athens calling the Georgia-Missouri game, and the wind was, we had a wind advisory with gust up to 40. I don't know that it ever hit 40, but if you could get it up in the jet stream, and you could get it out.
Well, ironically, I was watching the Masters the next day, and the wind was blowing so hard on that Friday, Saturday as well, right? On that Friday, it had to be the same wind, I'm sure.
That's exactly right.
And
same wind.
So I'm sure that it had a long effect on some of the scoring and what that looked like. But also when you listen to Brad talk, he loves to talk about how aggressive their offense is and how they lead in almost every category offensively, in the Sun Belt right now. And so, look, I think, and they've been an offensive team for the last couple of years. I think that the story for them was they were able to, he said, let me back up and say, he said, you only got to, you can win by your offense, you win by your pitching, you just got to win by whatever that might be, right? Or whatever the score might be. But they did, I think they just outsocked them. And teams that aren't used to playing high-digit games change their pitching quicker. They're used to playing lower-scoring games, so they'll go to the bullpen quicker. And sometimes when the wind is getting out like that, you'll find yourself at the bottom. I've done it. You'll find yourself at the bottom of your bullpen because you're just not used to that many homers or that many extra base hits, and certainly not that many runs. And I assume that was possibly what may have played a part in this past weekend's game with Southern Miss.
Yeah, they won 7 of their first 9. The schedule is a little bit easier for them in their first 3 series, but, they lost in the last at-bat twice last weekend at Georgia Southern, and then this week they win 2 out of 3 from Southern Miss, and now they're going to Troy. So I think they're proving that, hey, it wasn't just an easier schedule than maybe some others had that got them off to the good start. I think they're showing that they're legit in the conference at 9-6.
I think if they pitching a little more solid on the starting side of it, and because if you go through there and you look at the walks and innings pitched or the free base ratio, if that starts to come down and on innings pitched with that kind of offense, and obviously the defense is something that they're trying to improve on and make better. You put those 2 factors together, it's got a chance to be an exciting team headed down the second half of this season.
No doubt. Story number 4, 3 teams in the bottom 5 in the Sun Belt standings pulled off Power Conference road wins in the midweek. I mean, these were not teams at the top of the conference standings. These are teams in the lower half. Texas State won at Texas. I think you were there for that game, weren't you? South Alabama won at Alabama, and that's a Crimson Tide team that then went into the weekend and beat number 1 Arkansas 2 out of 3. And Marshall, as we alluded to earlier, they beat West Virginia.
Yeah, let's start at the top one. I mean, I called the Texas State game both nights, and Austin on the Wednesday game on radio for the Longhorn Network. But what's interesting about that series, this is the 3rd year maybe, or 2nd or 3rd year that they've done that, where they play a Tuesday, Wednesday series back-to-back. No home team has won yet. It's been every road team, every road game, the visiting team has won in that series.
So Texas State wins the season series, right?
Yeah, Texas State won the overall series because they beat them in Minute Maid as well, in the Minute Maid Classic with a walk-off home run late. Well, not a walk-off, a late home run by Lugo late and blew the bubble and hit the homer and all that. And then they came back, lost at home to Texas on Tuesday, and they actually finished the game. Believe it or not, they finished the game. It was a 9-1 game. They finished it at Dish Falk in Austin. They had 3 outs left before the rain got an issue on Tuesday night. They played a suspended or a halted game, finished it, and then started the next game. And Texas State was able to win the 3rd game of the complete series, but the 2nd of that double midweek.
And so this is a little bit outside the Sun Belt, but since you're in Texas, we'll bring it. Texas A&M's now ranked number 1 in the country. What a job Schlossnagle has done there in a short amount of time. Aggies just absolutely spanked Vanderbilt over the weekend. I mean, they beat them by a combined score of 36-6, and that got me into the record book. I was like, when's the last time that happened? The Commodores had not been beaten by a more than 30-run differential in an SEC series since 1992.
Wow, man! I'll tell you what. I've called, I think, 5 A&M games this year, and Jim has done an unbelievable job. Look, they might have the Player of the Year, possibly in right field, and Montgomery, the transfer from Stanford, Laviolette, the center field. I mean, their top half of their order, Matt, is so good and so physical and so capable of doing so many different things offensively. But the 2 pieces that they really, really overexcel at is on the mound, And not only their starting pitching, but their bullpen side of it, and their defense is unreal. I think I'd have to go back and look. They were somewhere around 985, 986 fielding percentage a week ago. They don't make bad mistakes. They don't make, an average college team, to put that in perspective, an average college team is around 963, 966, somewhere in there. Your better defending teams are 972 and above. You're not losing games if you're fielding 972. Anything below 965, you've given up some games with your defense. But they're at 980 something, and it's impressive to watch them. They're incredibly athletic, and you're right. Jim Schlossnagle has done an unbelievable job.
Funny thing is, they're third in the SEC standings behind Kentucky and Arkansas, but they're number one in the country. So wrap your head around that. Speaking about rankings.
Go ahead. That last series, though, it's in College Station between Arkansas and A&M on the last weekend, the SEC.
I've actually had a chance to call that series before there at Bluebell Park. What a fun series. And that was back when Childress was there. And, of course, Childress and Van Horn, they were side by side in their careers coming up along the way. And, of course, that's not the case anymore. But, of course, DVH is still there at Arkansas, no doubt about that. So, speaking of the rankings, that's our story number 5 in the RPI update also before we bring in Brad Stromdahl. Louisiana's up to number 14 in the D1 baseball top 25. Coastal's there at 19. And then as far as the RPI, there are 4 teams that are in there's 3 teams in the top 50 right now. Coastal's 22. James Madison still is at 26. Southern Miss is 47, and the Cajuns, despite their 14-1 conference record, are 57.
Strength of schedule is a comprehensive, collective view of everything you've done from day one to the end. It can glide, it can move, it can slide, it can go up, it can do so many different things. And over the next 4 or 5 weeks, obviously that meter is going to move, which you hope in a positive way, which is what happened last year in the Sun Belt. The last month, a lot of conferences, when you play within your conference, Matt, your RPI goes down. I mean, however you want to look at it. It goes the wrong way. Let's just say that. It goes the wrong way.
Goes the wrong way.
Yeah. Now, in the Sun Belt over the last 2 years, when they've gotten against and played against each other, it's gone the right way. The winners of those games, it's gone the right way. And I certainly don't see any different. This year, I think it'll do the same. Now that's why this weekend is so critical if you're a Louisiana fan, because you have a chance to go. If you find ways to win at Coastal, you got a chance to gobble up some of that RPI. And, that Coastal holds within them. If you're Coastal, if you're going to try to bring Louisiana back to the field and give yourself a chance from a regular season perspective, obviously it's got a lot of play in it and how this thing's going to turn out. But the bottom line is there's still a lot of RPI value out there over the next 4 to 5 weeks for the Sun Belt to pick up to help these teams that you were saying around that 50-ish. And don't forget, you always have everybody's schedules up, and their Tuesdays are always good, and there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
Time now to bring in Georgia State head coach Brad Stromdahl.
Of course, it's great to be here.
You're joining us from the Druid Hills Youth Association, where your boys Leo and Hugo play ball, and coming off a great weekend against Southern Miss, you get a chance to watch your boys play some ball tonight.
It's a great day, when you win a series, and especially against a really good team, as Southern Miss. And then you get to spend your Monday at the ballpark watching your kids play, and you don't have much of a chance throughout the course of the year. So it's a great makeup rain delay or rain game, and it's a great day to be here. It's great weather, and excited to be with you guys.
Yeah, don't let Coach fool you. Just because he's watching his kids, he's out there recruiting 9 and 10-year-olds already as well, by the way. He's got his notepad and his pen and pencil out there watching those games in a stopwatch.
Well, I think that's part of it, isn't it? For sure.
Well, tell me about your series against Southern Miss. First time you'd ever played the Golden Eagles, and you beat the defending conference champions by a total score of 46-30 I almost sent the stats back to Allison George, your sports information director, and said, man, these stats can't be right. But that was some astronomical offensive numbers for you guys.
Yeah, no, we had a great we had a great series. I mean, the wind was blowing out a little bit, and we've been going up and down, back and forth. We've been kind of the top of the conference with everything offensively throughout the course of the season, and we were just able to put the ball in play a lot the first couple games, and even the second game, I think we scored 9 or 10 runs, and so whether you score one run and beat them, or whether you score 15 or 20 runs and beat somebody, it's always tough to win a series in the Sun Belt, and we're fortunate to be able to come out of that with 2 wins, and looking forward to next weekend with Troy.
Okay, again, we're heading down the second half of the year and headed towards the postseason. And from an old coach's perspective, and you're constantly looking for ways to make yourself better. If you were going to put your finger on one or two things, whatever that might be, for Georgia State in your mind to get better heading down the second half of the season, what is that?
Oh, obviously we kind of have our philosophy and our lineup relatively set, where our 7, 8, 9 players are set, and then we have a rotation of 2 or 3 guys, whether it's first or DH or catcher. We really have to take care of the baseball. I mean, that to me is the number one priority as we hit the second half of the season. It's been a little bit of our Achilles heel moving across the first 15 games. I think that probably 3 of the losses have come with an error, either when we are tied or when we have the lead by 1, which has given them the lead. And so we just really have to take care of that, make sure of an out. If we take care of that, we play on the aggressive side of everything. And so that's also part of it, is like, you don't ever want to take the freedom away from the player to make a great play or a highlight or, a diving catch, whatever that is. But you also want to understand, like, where the baseball IQ is. Where do we stand when it comes to just, hey, the game, we're a tie game. We're at home. We're a tie game. We're on the road. Let's take care of the baseball. We have a really good pitching staff. We have good arms. We have good velo. We have good everything. Let's, make them hit their way to a win, as opposed to kind of give them an extra base or 2 or whatever it is. And so, I can handle a walk-off home run a lot more easily than I can, a walk-off, error or a walk-off boot. It's part of the game, though. So I think that that's probably the priority for us as we look into the second half. And the second part is I do think that we need to continue to figure out what our exact pitching staff looks like on the back end. Who matches up well with who, how we utilize guys a little bit better throughout the course of a right-left situation matchup or a left-left matchup, or, hey, the guy's not pitching very well, let's get him out, let's get the next guy in. Whatever those decisions are, I think that those are probably the 2 key points, because we have everything that we need. We're in a logjam tied with second place with the rest of the conference, basically. But I think that if you look at where we are right now and how we got here, we very easily could be 13-2, 12-3. I think that very easily, if we took care of some of those things that we just talked about, the fruition comes out to us being in second place outright.
You're in your second go with the Georgia State program. You were there as an assistant. Then you went and started the Gwinnett College program from scratch, turned them into a national power. Y'all were in the NAIA World Series pretty much every year. And now your 5th season back with the Panthers, and that's really kind of a misnomer there, because your first year was the COVID year. So, right. That doesn't really count. But, my point is this. Where are you where you feel like the program should be right now? You look like you're in a position where you're competing for an NCAA regional if you can stay top 4 in the Sun Belt Conference.
Yeah, I think that where we're at with regard to transfer portal, NIL, all of the things that have come into the mix in the last 3 years, I think that we're as good of a place, if not better, than I had expected. And if we're just talking about taking care of the baseball and using our pitchers differently, we're not talking about player personnel. We're not talking about velo. We're not talking about hits. We're not talking about, players themselves. I'm really, really proud of where we're at with regard to recruiting. Everything is in place. We really just now have to kind of push us through the finish line. And that's what's always been kind of the issue. We've always been missing one piece or the other of the puzzle. I think that the puzzle is complete now, and now we have to make sure that we complete what it is that will put us into a regional. Just like what we did at Gwinnett, the reference. It was a matter of building and establishing a program, and then making sure that they understood what it was like to be number one in the country, what it was like to be the top seed, what it was like to play in the World Series. There's always the next step with everything, and that's where we're at right now. This is the next step. We went to a regional in 2009 at Georgia State. We won the CAA at UNC Wilmington, and that was the last time this program has been in a regional. And so it's been quite a few years, and so it starts over when you have to accomplish something again. And it's cool that we went there, and we're trying to go back. And being in this conference every single weekend is so much fun. And I think that, there's probably 6 or 7 teams that may be deserving of being able to go to a regional, because it's so difficult to win day in and day out, weekend in and weekend out, just because every team is so different. You go from Coastal to Southern Miss to ULM to Arkansas State to, Texas State. You do all these different teams, and they're all built differently. Based on stadium, based on resources, based on a lot of different things. And so, you're sharpened when you get to the tournament, and then you get through the tournament, and you can get to the regional and be prepared for anybody in the country.
What do you think, now that you feel like everything's moving in the right direction, what are the assets? Describe to everybody, what are the assets that allows you to go out and recruit and bring in, you were talking about you're not, you've got the kind of velo, you've got the kind of players. What has that been? What are those assets been for you?
Well, and again, this is just pretty much singular to us, because I think that everybody has their own barriers to entry and their own, building blocks that prevent them from doing certain things. But for us, obviously, it's people. It's obviously our recruiting coordinator, Nico Buenteo, our offensive coordinator, and hitting coach, Lars Davis, our pitching coach, Chad Bell. Each of them played pro ball. Chad pitched in the big leagues. Lars won a World Series with Florida in 2017. Nico was a draft pick, played at Auburn, played at Oklahoma. Everybody has regional, super regional World Series experience. And so I think it always starts with people. But then obviously the city of Atlanta, greater metro Atlanta. And then our philosophy is simple. What the changes have been over the last couple of years with COVID, and then with the portal, and then with NIL, is that what we've really, really focused on is really stay local. Local with the offense, local with the pitching, and then kind of plug and play with the kid like Ryan Dial, who was at Auburn for 4 years, redshirted once, has a World Series experience, we're able to plug him into the lineup. Matt Ruiz last year came in, was at South Florida, went to a regional, has that experience. And so, what we have is, we may not have all the fancy bells and the whistles that, some of the other schools have, but you know what, we have grit, and we coach, and we teach, and we grow, and we watch video, and we do all the things that none of the ancillary things that, you have a fancy dugout or whatever that stuff. It doesn't matter when you step in the box. It doesn't matter when you're on the mound. It doesn't matter when you have to get a 2-out RBI, or you just have to move a runner from second to third with nobody out. We teach baseball the right way. And I think that those are some of the attributes that really have put us in this place, is that we're hard-nosed. We're tough, and I think that some of the social media over the last couple of years, specifically the last couple of weeks, about being in the back of a DeKalb County bus lots and, kind of playing onto that. Our guys kind of embrace it. It's where we are, and it's who we are, and we're gonna kind of live that lifestyle, and it's actually really fun to be a part of.
Yeah, and instead of fighting it, just embrace where you are right now, and so that's a pretty cool thing. Tell us about some of your other guys. You mentioned Dial and Ruiz. You got Hudson. He had a great series against Southern Miss. You got Donahoe at second base. Mize has been there forever, playing third. I noticed that JoJo Jackson, when I saw you a couple of weeks ago, he was struggling a little bit, but he popped 2 homers over the weekend, I think, and at least struggling from a power standpoint, I should say. Yeah. And Maximus Martin, Gladiator, I like to call him because you played him at shortstop. You got him in there at shortstop, and I know that's kind of his position. Hasn't had a chance to play it yet, but you got him in there over the weekend at shortstop.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think he went kind of right down the lineup, and it's anchored by Will Mize. I mean, Will Mize was recruited when we got here. He was one of my first phone calls 5 years ago when I got the job. I was like, hey, Will, let's do this thing together, and he's stayed through. He's in his 5th year of COVID. With his COVID year, and so he's really kind of seen every aspect of our program, just like we have from the beginning where we walked off Cincinnati, and then the next day we got COVID and everything was shut down. To if you guys remember, we played the SEC East that one year, where every
actually won a game at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was one of the highlights of that year for sure. But we've kind of been through it, and he's kind of been a mainstay. He had a really kind of a down year a couple years ago, and just was a really struggle. Wasn't sure what he was going to do, and he's really been the man. He's kind of been the constant for us. And then you kind of go down the line, and Jesse is a junior. We recruited him. It kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, is like we recruit local. We want guys to stay in the program, be organization guys, and then continue to lead us. And Jesse's been great. He's kind of in and out the last couple of years, and then, he's kind of found his way. Brennan Hudson, sophomore, same thing. Really didn't play until Western Carolina. We had an injury. He went in, and we can't take him out. And it's really fun for those guys who understand, like, next guy up is ready to go. Next guy up is going to play. And then we know from our standpoint, the next guy up is the guy that's going to be able to just stay in there and continue to move the program forward. And so, Michael McGinnis, he was a 3 or 4 or 5 star. He's probably a 3-star quarterback. He'll probably get mad at me for that, but and he was over at Stanford.
He had a monster series too.
Right, no, absolutely. So he came over last year and was a redshirt freshman, taking a year off from baseball. Just again in and out. And baseball's hard. I mean, it's hard to. It's hard. This conference is hard. Everything is hard and fun, and you have to grind, and you have to be ready for everything. And so he on and off again this year, and then he kind of all clicked. And so he's hitting 4-hole for us and just doing a great job. And then JoJo, I think that, a little bit of the draft stuff, a little bit of just kind of a lot of heavy weight on his shoulders, trying to do too much. In a time where, he needs to perform. And so, the great thing about us is that we just tell the truth as well about where we're at with life and where we're at. And he's been an amazing kid, JoJo, with just kind of the ups and downs and trying to figure out. He's a local Atlanta kid, just really, really excited for him. And, just kind of the ball wasn't falling for him. And so it took a couple weeks and was dinged up a little bit, but hit a couple home runs, get back in the lineup, and just to get things rolling. So, Maximus Martin, transfer from Rutgers, kind of plug and play. Matt Ruiz was playing shortstop for the first half, and then, Max came in at Georgia Southern. We moved Matty to the outfield, and it's kind of stuck. And it's fun to be able to have guys that are willing to play different positions. We also have a unique ability to have guys play multiple positions on given days. If Ryan Dial can play, I think he's probably played everywhere but left side of the infield. And it's just, he played catcher, first base, outfield. Hudson is the same way. So, being able to have dynamic people that are from Atlanta, from this area, and then plug and play with a couple of guys who are going to be able to, be role players within whatever position they are. It's been a lot of fun with that.
Ty, let me throw this one in there too real quick, because I'd be remiss if we didn't mention Luke Boynton. one of your
Yeah.
most physical guys in your lineup. And I know he's been hurt, but you're getting him back now. That's going to be huge for you in the second half of the season.
Yeah, no, I mean he hit I think 2 home runs at Georgia Southern. Tweaked himself a little bit on Saturday at Southern Miss or with the Southern Miss series, and so we let him sit a little bit. So he should be back this weekend. But to be able to have a presence like that, who played at Nebraska, is from Walton High School up the road here. It really just kind of solidifies what we are doing offensively. And so, I think that if we look at the conference stats, which kind of means something and kind of don't, as we for the most part lead almost every category: stolen bases, home runs, batting average, OPS, everything but fielding percentage, I think. So it's a fun little offense to be a part of.
Coach, I got nothing else for you other than congratulations on last weekend. I mean, that's a lot of fun for you, and certainly right now getting an opportunity to watch your children play. A lot of people don't know a coach's life and what that looks like. Mondays historically are your day off, and it's rare that your kids are doing something on a Monday. So congratulations on it. I'm sure they are probably anxiously excited that their dad's going to be out there watching them as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's a blast. I'm excited to be out here, and there's nothing better than being able to watch your kids play baseball and root them on and just kind of be a part of their lives from the little bit you can during the season, because they see it on the other side. They come to the games and all those things, and it's fun to be able to go watch them play and just have them come home and say, "Hey, Dad, did you see me do this?" or whatever. It's just it's heartwarming, and it makes it all a little bit better.
Yeah, I got a chance to meet him a couple of weeks ago. Some spunky little kids got there. They were jumping right there in the middle of BP and getting their hacks in with the rest of the players.
Hell yeah.
Hang in there long enough, Brad, and coach those guys in a couple of years, okay?
Absolutely. I hope we get an opportunity to have that opportunity for sure.
Well, you better be doing some good recruiting at home.
Keep winning, you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, you guys. Thank you for having us on.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, Brad.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you, Brad.
See you.
Appreciate it. Always great to catch up with Brad Stromdahl, and they've got a big one coming up on Tuesday night as well. As we were talking about RPI before the interview, they got Kennesaw State, and that's a top 35 RPI team right there. And then they got Troy this weekend. We'll hit on that series a little bit before we close out the podcast. But time now to talk about our Sun Belt starting 9 for the week. And I was really conflicted about this because I didn't want to make the whole offense Georgia State Panthers, but my gosh, Ty, they had 3 batters who hit over 500 in the series, 3 more that hit over 400 in the series. They had 2 that hit 3 home runs in their series against Southern Miss, and then they had 3 others who hit 2 home runs. I mean, it was just a phenomenal, extraordinary offensive series. So they're going to dominate our starting 9 here on the offensive side.
Well, I mean, if I'm sitting and I'm reading this over here on my computer to my right, and I thought to myself, anybody else play this week? It is the clash of the offensive team from Georgia State, a sprinkle of a handful of other hitters in there, and then certainly the domination of the great weekend, I should say, from Louisiana's pitching staff when you get to it. So I'm going to let you lead us down the Georgia State Louisiana starting lineup.
We're going to make a lot. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there going to be like, what are you talking about? There's got to be some other teams represented here. But, I mean, I challenge you to do side-by-side comparisons on the numbers at these positions and show me where someone else was more deserving. And I'm sure it'll change. Every week's different. But we'll start with the catcher, Georgia State, Ryan Dial. You heard Coach Stromdahl talk about him, Auburn transfer. He was 5 for 11, a double, 2 home runs, and 7 RBI. First baseman, Georgia State, Brennan Hudson, a sophomore. He was 8 for 11 in the series. That's over 700. 3 homers and 6 RBI. The second baseman, Jesse Donahoe from Georgia State, 5 for 12, 2 homers, and 4 RBI. And then we'll break it up. We'll get to the Coastal Carolina third baseman, Sam Antonacci. 18-game hitting streak, 32-game on-base streak. He's last year's Junior College National Player of the Year. He went 5 for 12, a double, a home run, and 4 RBI. So Coastal went out there and found themselves a diamond in the rough out there in JUCO D2. Not D1, but JUCO D2, and this kid's been doing it since he got there in the teal and black. He is some kind of extraordinary player. Shortstop, we got Maximus Martin for Georgia State. He's a guy that from Rutgers. They had him playing center field. They got him in there at shortstop now. 7 for 13, 3 doubles, a triple, and 3 RBI. Michael McGinnis, the former football player, 7 for 14, 3 homers, 8 RBI. Outfielder from Georgia State. JoJo Jackson popped 2 home runs, had 7 RBI, 4 for 13, and a double. He's a guy that had 13 bombs last year. And if you remember when we called the tournament, I think he had a really big tournament for Georgia State last year.
Yep, he did. No, I remember it as well.
A really physical player. And then we'll close it out. 2 non-Georgia State players. App State outfielder C.J. Boyd, like him a lot. I think he's a great athlete. 5 for 10, couple of homers, and 4 RBI. And Troy D.H. Kyle Mock went 5 for 10, a double, a couple of homers, and 2 RBI.
Yeah, for Troy, that was on the road at App. And for them to come out of there winning 2 out of 3 was huge for them. One of those 96 teams that is still around that top half. But, man, sometimes that's a tough place to head. I mean, the weather can be different there at times. And,
yep.
I mean, look, and I think if you go in there and you look at now the last 2 you got in there, App State, Carmack, from Troy, I think it proves that you were open-minded about the whole thing. It wasn't just going to be Georgia State. It wasn't just a show. No, there's a ton of deserving players. And every week as you do this, you put this together and you put a lot of work into this. It is true, but it is for this week. And it is for that moment.
Yeah, for this week.
And that's right. And so next week it'll be a whole nother start 9 possibly.
Yeah. And same thing for Louisiana on the pitching side. I mean, I was like, I'm not going to pick the entire weekend rotation, am I? And then I'm like, yeah, I am. I mean, how can you top what they did? I mean, how can Carson Flournoy took a no-hitter into the 8th. He ended up with a 1-hit shutout, 7 innings, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, threw 109 pitches. Left-hander Chase Morgan, he started the week by being named to the midseason freshman All-American list. On Saturday, 8 scoreless innings of 1-hit ball with 3 walks and 11 strikeouts. And then Andrew Herman, who continues to lead the conference in ERA, the Louisiana Friday night right-hander, lowered his ERA to 1.91. He went 6 1/3, a run scored, 5 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. He pitched into the 7th. I mean, you tell me who did better than those 3 guys this past weekend.
I don't know, but you're also leaving off right now a guy who might end up being the closer of the year and the relief pitcher of the year, and he has been till mid-season of the Sun Belt. Langevin has to be mentioned that he's the top reliever right now. Now, it doesn't mean what's going to happen the rest of the year or the rest of the Sun Belt season, but he's been on the list twice already. And the weekend I saw him against Texas State, he was unreal on Friday night. I mean, it was just lightning coming out of his hand. And then he was able to figure out how to work his way, navigate his way through on that Sunday as well. So he's been on the list, I think, a couple of times, and he's been really good this year.
Yeah, this is our third time, our third podcast. So he's been on there twice. He could have been on there last week. Right. Instead, we went with the young man, Mitchell Gross from Georgia Southern. But, Langevin's a real deal there, and he's a guy that he's not that guy you give him the ball in the 9th inning. You give him the ball when the game's on the line, and that's what Matt Deggs does. And this past week, the game was on the line with 1 out in the 7th, and he came in and finished it off scoreless for 2 2/3. Struck out 7 of the 11 batters that he faced and picked up his 5th save. And so he's our closer stopper of the week again. So.
Yep.
All right. Before we check out of here, let's looking ahead to the weekend. There's no doubt the biggest series from a profile standpoint, and standing standpoint too, you kind of already alluded to it, is 14th ranked Louisiana on the road at number 19, Coastal Carolina. Who wins out in this thing, Ty? Is it going to be the Ragin Cajuns pitching, playing at Springbrook Stadium, which is a much tougher place to pitch? It's a hitter's paradise, and Coastal always plays very well and scores a lot of runs there. And so the Chanticleers got the Cajuns on their turf this weekend.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm excited about watching. I am, because it is a clash of 2 different types of teams, and one that pitches the ball incredibly well and can score. Don't get me wrong, they can. Louisiana can. But Coastal being a really offensive team, a little bit more physical looking team, home run oriented type group as well. And so I'm anxious to see how that's going to turn out. I don't know what the weather looks like. Sometimes that can have an effect on, what direction the wind's blowing and how hard the wind is blowing, which is what I think had an effect again going back to Atlanta, and had an effect everywhere because the fronts moved across the great state of, the country, and pushed those winds to a northern breeze on a lot of different places, and fields set up either to the south, which is those gates open up when I have a south wind, and I have a north more times than not. It's coming in certain ballparks. So I'd be anxious to see what that looks like. A lot of 9 and 6 teams going to figure out if they're going to start to separate up. And there's some of those guys down in that lower quadrant right now that still have an opportunity to move up pending their schedule and pending on how they're playing. And at this time of year, we talked about this last week, Matt, staying healthy and getting guys back that have been injured are a huge part of what your April becomes. And how good do your freshmen play that have been kind of up and down? Are they now feel like a comfort level that they're playing at a high level and need to be playing at the Division I level on a regular basis? That starts to come out as well.
You mentioned that 9 and 6 logjam, and that's the other series to keep an eye on as Georgia State goes to Troy to play the Trojans. Those are two of the 5 teams that are in that 9 and 6 logjam. We have not talked a lot about the Trojans so far in our Troy's getting ready to be a big topic of conversation here as we head into the back half of April and into May. And I know we'll be talking to Skylar Meade sometime in the not too distant future. But that's going to be a fun series right there with Georgia State and Troy. And that's gonna play a big role in who comes out of that log jam and who's in the top 4 of the conference and who maybe is more in the middle of the conference.
I think so too. That's going to be fun. It'll be another great week in the Sun Belt. Again, it's repeatedly said it's a Power 5 baseball, I think league. It's been that way for the last 2 years with that many multiple teams in the NCAAs, and so it's a rough, tough league, and it is a 30-game experience and a 30-game grind. And so it's going to be fun to see how this turns out over the next couple of weekends.
All right, who you got this weekend? What you doing?
I have got Texas State and South Alabama. And then tomorrow night I've got I've got Austin, I've got University of Texas, and Rio Grande, UTRGV. And so I got a full week.
Well, that'll be a fun game.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. But I think the South Al, the Texas State South Al, they're that right now. And I think the both have futures could be different depending on that.
That's going to be a good series.
Yep. And that lower quadrant, if somebody gets a chance to move up and keep improving their status in the league as well.
It is. Yeah, the winner of that series takes a big step towards, making the tournament. Because right now they're down there in that last 5, and there's going to be a team. I think they've got I think there's 4 teams that are at 6-9 or 3 at 6-9. One of those, series for those 2 guys, and of course, South Alabama won against Arkansas State over the weekend, and Texas State lost at ULM over the weekend. So enjoy that baseball. I'll be calling Georgia and Ole Miss the 3-game series at Foley Field in Athens, Georgia this weekend. So, Ty, good to talk to you again.
Back at you.
Enjoy your baseball weekend.